The Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, has transited fully into a commercial company and will now be known as the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPC Limited. The unveiling of the company's new logo by Nigeria's President and Minister of Petroleum took place at the State Banquet Hall, Abuja. Only Sunday, Arise News correspondent reports.
Because you've got energy for today, energy for tomorrow, bigger than yesterday.
With the harmonization of its new tagline, the ceremony to usher in Nigeria's latest oil company begins. The fulfillment of one of the provisions of the Petroleum Industry Act signed on August 2021 after 2 decades.
While the country was waiting for the PIA, Nigeria's oil and gas industry lost about $50 billion worth of investment. In fact, between 2015 and 2019, KPMG states that only 4% of the $70 billion investment inflows into Africa's oil and gas industry came to Nigeria, even though the country is the continent's biggest producer with the largest reserves. We are setting all these woes behind us, and a clear path for the survival and growth of our petroleum industry is now before us.
Present at the launch of this historic achievement is Nigeria's President and Minister of Petroleum Resources, under whose administration the bill that paved the way for the privatization of the NNPC was signed.
By chance of history, I was privileged to lead the creation of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation on the 1st of July, 1977. 44 years later, I was again privileged to sign the Petroleum Industry Act in 2021. Coincidentally, on the 1st of July 2022, I authorized transfer of assets from the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation to its successor company, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, and steered the implementation leading to the unveiling of Africa's largest national oil company today.
That said, the new logo is unveiled.
The egg has finally cracked. Energy for today, energy for tomorrow.
With the latest development, NNPC Limited will operate as a commercial, independent and profit-driven Nigerian oil company at par with its peers around the world. Its shareholders are over 200 million Nigerians it served as a government-run corporation.
This indeed is a new day, a new hope and a new opportunity to upscale our relevance in the global energy community as Africa's largest energy company, endowed with the best human resources one can find anywhere in the industry. NNPC Limited is positioned to lead Africa's gradual transition to new energy by deepening natural gas production to create low-carbon alternatives and positively change the story of energy poverty at home and around the world. Your Excellency, Mr. President, we have taken a strategic initiative to achieve our mandate of ensuring energy security for our country by rolling out a comprehensive expansion plan to grow our fuel retail presence from the 547 to over 1,500 outlets within the next 6 months. Our drive for organizational sustainability is hinged on our renewed commitment to partnerships that deliver sustainable value to all with integrity.
While the positive energy for today and tomorrow theme reverberates across the room, the rendition by Nigerian international artist Asha somewhat brings to the fore the challenges bedeviling the sector.
One day the river will overflow, and there'll be nowhere for us to go, and we will run, wishing we had put out the fire. Oh, there is fire on the mountain.
challenges that must be addressed to tackle Nigeria's energy crisis and dwindling revenue from oil.
This administration cannot allow the NNPC to continue living in the shadow of its past while being unable to meet present expectations of funding the operations of the Federation account, oil production quota, petrol supply and adequacy, or even basic refining capacity. By this move, the government aims at opening the space for private players to be able to venture into the oil and gas industry and make NNPC Limited a global partner of choice.
With the official transitioning into a private entity, the oil company will be regulated in line with the provisions of the Companies and Allied Matters Act. The federal government will also seize all forms of funding for projects and sundry purposes like it did in the last 45 years of the NNPC. Only Sunday.
The world is at your feet. Nothing can stop you. Yeah.
Arise News.
Joining me to discuss this subject and more is Gbite Adeniji, managing partner at EIR Advisory, a law firm that is exclusively focused on the energy and mineral sectors of Nigeria. Thank you very much, Gbite Adeniji, for agreeing to join us on this conversation on this Live, this Sunday talk show. Quickly.
Well, thanks for having me here, Dr. Gbite. But as you mentioned quickly, it's actually ENR Advisory.
ENR?
Yes.
Not EIR.
Energy and Natural Resources Advisory.
ENR, Energy and Natural Resources. Yes. That's fine.
Yes.
But you're in that sector, yes, and you're a lawyer, you're an energy lawyer and a player in that sector. But very quickly, let me ask you. This commercialization of the NNPC that is out there in the public domain in terms of the change in brand, logo, identity, and the declaration by the group CEO of NNPC Limited, previously Group MD of NNPC, a public corporation. What does it mean? How is it important, particularly within the purview of the Petroleum Industry Act of 2021?
Okay. Actually, it's a very, very significant milestone, right, in Nigeria's journey around the petroleum resources. So for the first time, there's now a statutory mandate that attempts to give some level of protection, right, to the national oil company. So let me just take you back, because you have to understand what the mischief was, right? The mischief was that you had a national oil company that was being invaded, right, by all the big men in the country. So the story around oil and the quest for power in the country is really about the control of the oil resources. So if you have a national oil company in a context that we have in Nigeria, that company can never achieve, right, because it will always be invaded by powerful forces. So what you need to do, right, to address that is to put a statutory cloak around that entity, right, and give it a mandate. So it's a statutory duty now to operate commercially, unlike in the past when it didn't have to, right? So that's a very significant development. Then the next, you now put some governance structures around it as well. And you must have heard the group CEO mention about attempting to take, his aspirations to take the company towards an IPO at some point. That could never have been the discussion 2 weeks ago, right, when that statutory duty hadn't kicked in. So this is very important. So we're now in a new era, right, around the management of the petroleum resources vested onto NNPC. Now, that is the aspiration. Now, the next thing is now the rubber is now about to hit the road, right? We now have to now see how those who are now vested with the power, right, fully understand that they have the power and can implement according to the law. Because it's a very powerful tool that they've been vested with.
Okay, well, you talked about mischief.
Yes.
which is a popular phrase with lawyers, trying to cure a particular mischief with regard to natural resources and other issues. Okay, do you think that the mischief, whatever it is, has been cured? Particularly with regard to the point being made in reaction that, look, this is like old wine in a new bottle. Many of the workers are still staffers of the old NNPC, and some Nigerians are saying this is even shrouded in secrecy. And I'm quoting the presidential candidate of the PDP, People's Democratic Party of Nigeria, well, he says not an Alaji, Chief Atiku Abubakar, who says, look, nobody knows what the NNPC has done. Do you think that the mischief that you alluded to has really been cured? Or this is just same old process that will not have any effect?
I think we have to cut the new NNPC some slack. This is just the first week, right, of a new identity, right? The first week under which the new system is about to kick in. It will take some time, right, before you can know whether that mischief has been cured or not. What you have is you've been given now a platform to achieve. So let's put it in proper context.
Okay.
If you allow me, please, right? If you just 1 second, proper context. Now you have equity, right, given to the corporation, 200 billion naira equity. You have assets of $600 billion. I've read somewhere that they've accessed debt of $5 billion to basically now move forward. They now have a board they've invested governance with, there'll be board committees and all. You'll have to give it time, right, to be able to see whether it is truly old wine in a new bottle or whether a new chicken has come out of the egg. That's their logo that we saw the other day, right? So time will tell, right? But it is too early, right, to be so critical. Let's give it time and let's see what happens. The markers are there. You've got to audit your accounts. You've got to publish your accounts. You've got to put in new processes. You have to restructure because obviously the corporation, as you know, was bloated. That's very clear. But the human capital is there. So the question is, how do we now see that the governance structures and the power given to this entity can yield something that now begins to work for Nigerians? But only time will tell.
Okay, let's interrogate some of the issues. Section 53, subsection 5 of the Petroleum Industry Act, which is the catalytic framework for this transformation of the NNPC, says, for example, that shares cannot be devolved to other parties, anything related to the new company cannot be mortgaged except with the concurrence of the Economic Council and also of the National Assembly. Do you see now a situation, given issues that have been raised around the PIA, that a future government can come and just turn all of this adrift? Because even now, people are asking that what Nigerians need is not commercialization. What they need, the critics argue, is privatization.
Good. All right. Well, at the end of the day, every government will have its policy regarding how it wants to move the resources. So you can't predict what any new government would do. And that's always been a problem around governance in Nigeria. A government truly can come tomorrow and say, you know what, we don't need an NNPC. We want to privatize everything. That's possible, right? What we've operated in the last 7 years has been almost like a welfarist stroke statist.
Socialist. No, that's the word. A socialist regime.
So that's what we operated. So what I'm seeing with the two leading parties who are contesting for power is that they're moving towards a liberalist orientation. So it's possible they may come and say, you know what, we want to privatize. It is very possible, of course. There may actually never be an NNPC tomorrow, right? If that is what a new government wants, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah,
definitely, right? So then that would mean you'll have to do a little bit of tinkering around, around the law, and then get about the task of privatizing it. Because look. We have to ask ourselves: what is this attachment to oil? It's almost unhealthy. In this same country, we had a mineral sector as the first industrial sector in the country. At some point, we privatized everything. The Nigerian Mining Corporation that we used to know no longer exists. All the assets have gone into private hands. We have a framework that basically has changed the entire handling of hard minerals in the country. Why is oil so special? Oil is very distracting on us in Nigeria. So if any government comes to me and says, let's get off oil, by all means, let it do what it needs to do.
Okay, I get your point. I mean, in the last report that was issued by government, we made more money from non-oil exports. Oil was second grade, okay? But with oil selling at over $100 dollars per barrel, we should be making more money. Oil is the category that is responsible for more than 80% of foreign exchange earnings. So there's some distortion there. There is some problem there. How can we be so blessed and yet so cursed? But I was going to ask you about the ordinary man on the street. He hears that NNPC has changed logo. NNPC has changed identity. NNPC is talking about transformation. What does it mean, all of this, in real terms, for the ordinary Nigerian who wants to say, I live in an oil and gas-rich country? That has not translated into an advantage for that ordinary man, because immediately NNPC changes identity. NNPC stations jacked up their pump prices to $179 per liter. So we go back to the issue of the refineries. What do we do?
Well, I think you're conflicting many issues. With due respect, Dr.
Well, I mean, I've brought up many issues.
You are conflicting on the issues. So let me try to unpack some of the things you said.
Please, break them down.
Okay. Again, first of all, NNPC, there's a new NNPC Limited. You have to give it time. So the fact that a new NNPC Limited has been done can't have an immediate positive impact on anybody in the country. Time will tell. That's number one. Secondly, on the issue of subsidy, which is a completely different issue, that is not an NNPC's issue. That is an issue for the government of Nigeria, to decide whether it wants to continue this subsidy regime or not. NNPC is just an agency of government. It just implement policy. So if the government says no more subsidy, that's the end of it. And that's what people who have a better understanding of economics, right, and how countries could better run actually want. That this subsidy regime, for me, if I even jump into that band, I'll say it's bad policy.
Yeah, unsustainable.
It's unsustainable. I mean, look at it. Look at what it's done to us, right? We've seen how all of a sudden our debt stock, right, has gone even worse. We see that we can't even, there's so much we cannot fund anymore. If what we use in PMS subsidies had been put, for instance, in the power sector, maybe there would have been better outcomes for the poor in this country. So it's a matter of policy choice. But one thing's for sure, it is not sustainable, and it has to come to an end before long, before we all go down with it. So I would not even blame NNPC for it, really. It's ultimately those that they ultimately report to that have to take the decision. That's where the buck actually stops.
Okay, there are persons who have raised questions about corporate governance.
Yes.
And I think we need to deal with that. They're saying that even within the window, the transition window, that has been talked about by certain stakeholders. What is the guarantee that the NNPC within that transition window will not continue to behave as the old NNPC? What is the guarantee, that transition? Because Mele Kyari, Group CEO, is talking about emphasis on profit and loss, on transparency and accountability, and the NNPC going to receive payment for services rendered to the federal government. And yet, this same new NNPC is under the authority as shareholders of the Ministry of Finance Incorporated and the Ministry of Petroleum Incorporated.
Okay.
Has there been a transition?
There's been no transition yet because, again, we're just a week away from the big event. But what you have to understand is this. There's a relationship between governance, proper governance of a corporate entity, and the outcomes for profit and success of that entity. So if the board does its job well, right, and the management, we should expect to see a very successful corporation. But it is true, you can write all the laws you want to write, okay? But if those placed with the responsibility for the governance and management of the entity don't understand or step up, right, to the powers given to them by law, and I still maintain that they have protection under the law, right, to run a first-class entity, then I would have been a huge disappointment to the 200 million people that they work for. So it's up to them, right, to basically now do what they've been mandated to do. And understand, it took some of us 20 years, putting our shoulders to the wheel to get to the point where these laws were enacted. Today, many people sacrificed for that to happen. So we're looking at them, right? Not to disappoint us, right? And the other 200 million people, right? And to perform according to our expectations. We want to see a successful national oil company. But it's all a function of will. What is your will? How serious are you?
Okay, in the course of the week, when this story broke, we have had stories about how the ambition of the new NNPC that has been unveiled is to become like Saudi Aramco, to become like Petronas, that's the Malaysian company,
yes,
and to be like the Brazilian Petrobras.
Yes.
Okay, is that ambition achievable given what we know right now and given the peculiarities of the Nigerian situation?
Okay. So we started by saying that there was a mischief that has been sought to be addressed. So you still have to situate that ambition within that mischief. I've heard the group CEO says he wants to achieve an IPO within 3 years. Personally, I don't think that's possible, right?
Oh, within 3 years?
Yes.
It's impossible?
It's not possible. It's not possible. Let's be...
So those who say nothing has changed?
No.
Right?
They're not right. They're not correct. But let me understand. Let me explain what it is. You are trying to take a corporation that has been so pockmarked, right, with a very bad national culture, right? The culture, the Nigerian thing, the Nigerian mindset, right? You're trying to take it and make it a world-class entity. It is possible to achieve that, but it will take time. So what we all need to do is to help them succeed, which is basically those in the presidency, right? Those in the Ministry of Petroleum Resources that they report to have to give them the protection to achieve that objective. But it won't happen in 3 years. But you have to clean up the corporation first, right? You have to restructure the corporation. There's a new corporate structure they've designed. You have to shuffle people around. You have to introduce a new procurement system. You have to introduce new processes. You have set up the board committees. There's so much internal stuff you have to do, right? You probably have to take a look at the board and shuffle some people around to dress the company up in a manner that will make it attractive, right, for the IPO. That takes time. Can it be done? Yes, it can be done, but it can only be done if their superiors want it to be done. The superiors must want to protect them to help them achieve that objective.
Okay, I'm scratching my head.
So it's a Nigerian issue.
I see you are pro-NNPC.
No, I like NNPC because I think that the human capital is there, right? And I see that all of us, we are the risk to that entity. We can only succeed as a country if they have the protection.
Okay. I mean, we're still in the mining exploration sector.
Yes.
Before we wrap this up, I want your comment on the decision at the last National Security Council meeting, articulated, conveyed by the Attorney General of the Federation and subsequently by the Minister of Information and Culture, that mining has become such a problem that the Nigerian government has banned mining activities in Nigeria. The Miners Association of Nigeria has, fought back to say, no, you cannot ban mining in Nigeria. What's your take on that? Is it possible for the law, to be in place and for government to say, we are banning an existing law?
Firstly, you cannot shut down an entire sector of a country. That's a bad decision, right? It is true that a lot of the conflicts in Nigeria have been based around the mining industry, people looking for gold and precious stones and killing themselves and all that. But all you need to do, right, is to try to understand the patterns. Where are these things concentrated at, right? Mining occurs all over Nigeria, but conflicts are not everywhere. Conflicts around minerals are not everywhere in the country. So, but once you shut down the entire sector, right, you're shutting economic activities around the entire 994,000 square kilometers of the country. That doesn't make sense to me, right? We know, for instance, that in Zamfara, which is the heart of the gold belt, right, there's been a lot of killings around gold mining, illegal gold mining. You shut that down and you clean it out, that's fine. You do so for a few months and just restore order in the area, that's fine. But you can't do so everywhere. Let me tell you the kind of perverse outcomes you could have. Some of our largest industrial concerns today, right, are within the mining sector. Our cement industries. Because we mine, we mine to produce cement. You shut that down. What then happens to the price of cement? What happens to those who have to build homes? And all that basic comes from all the jobs and everything around it. That decision doesn't wash. So you need to be location specific. Then you could then have a security people then start cleaning up the problems. That's really what I think should have happened.
Okay, what are you recommending to the federal government in specific terms? I see your point about being location specific.
That's right.
But the federal government is insisting that illegal mining, artisanal mining, provides funds for terrorism and is a major source of oxygen for insecurity in Nigeria. Do you think that those who have said so from the National Security Council are wrong in that regard?
I think they're wrong. So what you need to do, to my mind, is firstly, you need to take a look at the structure of regulation of the mining industry, where in every state you have someone in charge on behalf of the federal government called the state mines officer. What are the state mines officers doing? What reports are they giving back to the center? Then around them, right, are certain security agencies. How are they connected with the state mines office to be able to also give reports to the security system? What happened to the drones? right, that you can use to do surveillance. So there's technology that could also be in use here. So let's not throw away the baby and the bathwater. That's what I'm saying. Use the existing system. Now, if some people are not doing their jobs, by all means, withdraw them back to headquarters. Or, for those who are complicit in this game, don't hold back from, remove them from work.
Okay, very quickly, Gbite Adeniji, before we go. Let me go back to the topic we started with.
Sure.
From an ordinary man's perspective,
yes.
People like us who have to buy fuel. So if NNPC is commercialized as it has been,
yes.
What is the gain for the ordinary man?
Good.
Because I guess that's what the ordinary man in Nigeria wants to hear. Would there still be fuel scarcity? Would the refineries no longer work? Very briefly.
The important thing to know is that we're all going to pay for about a year or so. Some refineries will start coming into operation as from next year. I'm not talking about Gbite now. The 1 or 2 NNPC refineries that I think will start working as from next year. But the subsidy has to go. Let's be honest about it. Nigerians must stop wanting to go to heaven and not wanting to die. Okay? So we all must accept that the subsidy is a big waste.
Death caused by poor leadership.
No, I won't say poor policy choices. That's my phrase. Poor policy choices. Poor policy choice. So what you need to do is to shift that spend into other sectors that could give better outcomes for the poor. Okay? But it's not through PMA subsidization that the poor will get richer in this country, or their lives will get better. That's the issue. But for the next year or so, because of the decision the government has taken to continue subsidization, well, we'll all suffer shortages of PMS and all whatnot.
Well, thank you very much,
Always a pleasure.
Gbite Adeniji, for joining us on This Is Live This Sunday talk show.
Thank you. Always a
And for
pleasure.
helping us to shed more light on issues in the oil and gas sector, the transformation of the NNPC, and issues in the mining sector. Thank you very much indeed.